good, right? And let me know in chat if the sound is no bueno. I'm not gonna make you suffer through the introduction again. I'll turn it back over to Angelo.
All
All right,
right. Is there
we're good.
sound now? There's
Waiting
sound?
for the comments. All right, I think there's sound. Yes, there's sound. My sound bar
All
says
right.
yes. So, anyways,
All right.
let me just do a because I can cut all of this. I can cut all of this. Right.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
Welcome to Nimdzi Live, everybody. We are doing a hard reset because we had a little technical difficulties, which I will blame on my producer, me. And we're going to do a little hard reset here. I'm not going to make you sit through the whole introduction, but we are with Angelo Passalacqua and Bryan Montpetit, who authored an article recently in Multilingual Magazine in the May issue. Get your copy. You can get your copy at multilingual.com/subscribe if you're not a subscriber. If you are a subscriber, then you should have it pretty soon here in your mailbox. Angelo and Bryan are industry veterans. They've been around for a long time. Their most recent venture is a company called Zen Global, which I've talked with Angelo before about, but it's been a while since we've been able to catch up. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them about the exciting stuff that's happening at Zen Global, as well as discussing their article from Multilingual Magazine about chatbots and ChatGPT. All right, take two. Angelo, what did I forget?
Nothing, anything. You nailed it. Basically, Zen Global started as an idea a couple of years ago after living 10 years or so in the industry, not being able to figure out, well, learning basically that there isn't a technology that works properly. Like you have to use glue and duct tape to try to get your platforms to work together. And after talking to every single salesperson of every single language platform industry, I realized, okay, obviously there's an opportunity here, and there's a massive gap. So, long story short, I talked to Bryan, and it was like, how do we do this?
You found your first victim.
You had the ideas
just like
already.
Renato found his first victim years ago when we started Nimdzi Insights. You
Right.
shut up, Bryan.
But Bryan is like the most capable person. He's specialized in both digital marketing and sales, and also in like building tech. Thankfully, it just required the two of us to like glue something together and go out with it. But since then, ChatGPT came out, and that was amazing.
Changed everything.
And yeah, if you haven't tried it, if you're one of the 85 or whatever % of people that haven't actually used ChatGPT yet, go to OpenAI, check out the website, and you'll learn that a lot is about to change, including the language industry. But that's always changing. So ChatGPT came out, and we're just like, oh, we got to figure out how to put this into because we were building a CRM at the time. And we still are, but how do we fit the chatbot into our CRM?
Okay.
And a few months go by, and Bryan's doing all the technical research. And a few months go by, and we're like, no one's done like the more basic thing, like just save the prompts that we're using so that we can rerun them. Run a prompt on a document, upload a document, run the prompt, have a translation. Everyone was in a way doing something similar to us. They're trying to figure out how to stuff the latest technology into their 10-year-old technology and get it to work.
Well, and in a way, folks like you that are just coming out with new technology kind of have an advantage over the dinosaurs, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's a lot harder to plug new stuff into an old system than to develop around it. Right.
Right. That is
what we're saying. Yeah.
The literal difference fundamentally. Like we're a genuine, literal AI first technology platform because we're building right on top of ChatGPT. Everybody else is trying to stuff it into their UI and their stuff. And so anyway, we saw this and we're just like, okay, no one is even doing the more basic stuff. And so Bryan, I was like, well, we need a project for you to stick all of your research around. And so Bryan, in his ability, threw together a website, threw together the platform, stuck in a menu, upload file, run prompts, download, boom. And we're like,
it was rough.
That's rough.
It was very rough.
Right.
and
We're
process.
paying for it now.
Tell us your side of the story, Bryan. With
Yeah.
two guys like Angelo and me, you're gonna have to fight for your
Yeah, no,
space to
that's
talk.
fine. That's fine. I mean, Angelo, when he came to me with the idea as well, and he was talking about ChatGPT, very sincerely, I was like, wait, what is this thing? I hadn't even heard about it when Angelo brought it up to me. And so we kind of dove into the research, or I dove into the research because Angelo was already miles ahead. And yeah, it blew my mind about what we were capable of doing, right? So from there, it was just a matter of, discussions with Angelo, and then, as he said, kind of getting this whole proof of concept together, smashing it all together, and see if it could work. And yeah, uploading the files, getting the prompts going was pretty quick. But yeah, a lot of trial and error to get things actually working the way it should be, because we realized that irrespective of how consistent your prompts are, the responses were not. So
Right.
we had to work around that. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well,
the main. Sorry, go ahead.
no, please go on, because I'm gonna segue us into something else here.
Oh, I was just gonna say the main thing we learned is that Bryan was like, dude, this thing outputs code. And I was like, that's cool. I'm not a developer. And he's like, code means a computer can read it and then do things. Not only can it just talk to you, it can do things. You can input English and it'll then go do a thing.
Yep.
And I was like,
code.
well, this completely changes everything, right?
Mhm.
Right? This is not just a chatbot. This is not just where.
Mhm.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing in our industry. Yes, LLMs, ChatGPT can do translations. That is one out of
That's a tiny
99 million things.
Yeah.
That's not what it's built for.
It's not even the best
of
one.
course, of course, that's
Right,
what we
it's
all
not even the
think,
best.
because we're all from this industry, right? So that our brain immediately goes to, oh, how well can it translate? It's like, well, it can, but that's not what it's built for. It has so many different functionalities, which you cover wonderfully in your article. I like how your article kind of just takes us through a timeline of the perception and evolution of chatbots and what do you call them? Digital assistants, DAs, right?
Yep.
And
Right.
just to start with a quote here, you said, a little over a decade ago, if you would have asked the average person what a chatbot was, they might not have known. Chatbots were a cheap wine. Still, and I love the wine analogies. Any booze analogies are always welcome. Chatbots were a cheap wine, still unrefined, and the technology wasn't celebrated. And this is, 10 years ago. Yeah, I mean, we didn't all have Alexas in our house. Just before we came on live today, you were shouting something at Google Assistant. And nowadays, it's become commonplace. So I think one of my questions to both of you is, how have perceptions changed over time around chat technology and digital assistants? And more importantly, or more interestingly, I should say, now with the rise of large language models and generative AI and all of this stuff, and we're starting to see this exponential curve go up, how do you expect perceptions to be changing in the future?
Yeah, the main thing to know to recognize is I was reading a couple of articles sometime maybe this week or last week that most people, only 20% or less than 20%
Yep.
of people have actually tried ChatGPT. So most people still hate
Really?
chatbots. Yeah. Yeah, right?
It's
So most people still I was
And
I was
it's
at a birthday
all we
party.
talk about. I have a running gag on this podcast that regular listeners will know. I set a timer to see how long we make it into each
Right.
podcast before someone brings up AI and ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And we
That's the
can
thing.
be talking about, yesterday we were talking
Anything.
about Bible translations, and it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter
Right.
of time.
So I think
Yeah.
that the important thing to realize is that while we live it, most people, the vast majority of people, haven't even tried it out yet. So chatbots are still, I'm sure, the really annoying thing that is your last resort for just being like, get me to an assistant. I don't care what you're asking me. Just get me to an assistant, and get me to someone, get me to an agent, and get me someone to talk to.
Right.
Um,
It's equivalent
but
of pressing zero over and over
It
again.
is.
Yeah.
exactly it.
You're talking to it from the user perspective, but from somebody who's actually implemented them, like on websites and stuff like that, it's really useful to the salespeople to get the input. So getting that tree menu or the annoying buttons that go across, it does help us figure out what's going on. And yes, obviously, when the human
Keyword
interjects,
us.
then we're good. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and because the chatbots are changing, right? It used to be a very
They are.
programmatic, like
Hmm.
decision tree that you had to go in and
Exactly.
program.
Yeah.
And how is that changing now? That well, let me go back to another quote here from your article, Multilingual. Rapid advancements in artificial intelligence and
Hmm.
natural language processing, technically called large language models or LLMs, now allows chatbots to understand context, learn from past interactions, and provide more human-like responses in every language. I'm going to read that again. Understand context, learn from past interactions, and provide
Hmm.
more human like responses in every language on the internet, including computer code, which allows them to actually do things that people at a computer can do, aka robotic process automation. The one chatbot right now that can do all this very well is ChatGPT. This doesn't make chatbots just chatbots anymore. It makes them robotic process automation applications with conversational UI, complete digital assistants or DAs. You tell it what to do and it does it, even if you don't know how to do it. That's a game changer. Unpack that for me, guys.
Angelo.
Yeah. All right. So like very recently, Bryan and I were like bringing this to proof of concept. You can tell it to for example, I suck at writing. You can tell it, what do you need to know in order to write a first class blog post or book, and it'll
Magazine
just
article.
right. And it'll tell you everything it needs to know.
Yeah.
And like a form, you just give it back all the information, and then it goes off and does it. And developers use it. Bryan, you and your team know better than I do.
Yep.
Can use it to write code that they themselves might not be sure how to write.
I mean, it renders it really, really, it's an efficient process, right? So if you're having trouble or racking your brain on how to get around something, you just prompt it and you get back this code that you can whack into your, your full set, and then you can test it out. I would say that most of the time it's pretty good. I mean, some modifications, of course, but yeah, it speeds things up quite a bit. So.
And well, I'm gonna, go directly to your punchline at the end of the article. I love how you finished the article. It was like, I forget exactly the words, and I don't have the quote pulled up, but it's like, and this entire article was written by ChatGPT, or was it? Right? I'm gonna put you on the spot. Like, how or did, and if so, how did you use ChatP when writing the article in multilingual? And I see you in the comments there, Martin. I'm going to
Mhm.
put a link in the comments to the article so y'all can access it.
So so the way me and Bryan wrote this article, because Bryan was very busy building the thing, so he's like, "You do it, and I'll just I'll
Full
check it at the end.
transparency. There you go.
I'll check it at the end and make sure I'm comfortable putting my name on it." So like
Yep.
so when I was writing it, my plan was to use ChatGPT as much as possible. And I gave it examples from The Economist. I gave it examples from, I forgot where else. I think I actually used another multilingual article. And I said, this is the style, this is what I'm going for. And it output garbage.
Yeah.
And what I realized is what makes it garbage was my preference. Because like if you really care about how your writing that's going to have your name on it comes off, you really care that it is in your voice. And it's difficult to prompt it to write in your style if you're not giving it your style, right? I gave it The Economist and I gave it some other stuff. And I realized like the best I could do with this thing was for it to just tell me what makes for a good article. And then I just go back and forth with it, looking, I'll ask it for synonyms, I'll ask it for a rewrite, applying a metaphor, and then I have to edit that. Truth be told, the article wasn't really written by ChatGPT, but it did give me a lot of really good pointers on how to rewrite a paragraph that I ended up having to rewrite, but how to make it better.
Right.
So like the cheap wine analogy actually came from ChatGPT.
Oh, I love it.
Right. So that's basically what happened. And that's just one of the million things that ChatGPT can do. Like you can code or prompt ChatGPT to clean a file, which is one of the main use cases that our platform
Well,
GabbyT
there's so many
does.
good use cases. Like one of my
Oh, yeah.
favorite is because if I want to type something in a foreign language, and my American fingers don't know how to type accents, so I can copy it into ChatGPT and say add the accents where they're supposed to go in this Spanish.
Absolutely.
There's so many different use cases, and I'll plug my own
I think we have a
stuff.
button for that, actually.
Yeah, I have a my article in the June issue of Multilingual magazine came out. Remote work and global dispersion: post-pandemic language industry perceptions. And just to be fully transparent here, because I think that's what it's about, so that we can all learn from each other, right? I have no shame in saying I use ChatGPT to help write this article. Now, having said that, I don't think it saved me any time, right? What it did was it allowed me to kind of structure my thoughts, and it was a research-based article. So I would feed it with a bunch of research, like tables from Excel and whatnot. And I'd say, here's the research, here's the data. Can you please write me a section about, and I broke it up into sections. And it would output crap, essentially, right? But it got me started, and I was able to go in and turn that crap into good stuff. And whereas just sitting down in front of a blank piece of paper, I think can sometimes be intimidating.
Well, I think it's similar to, when people use ChatGPT, it's all about the prompting and how they enter all their information and requests, right? Same thing with Google. The way you search is going to influence what results you get. And there's people that just always get horrible results when they search versus, there's other people that get exactly what they want right away. It's just about knowing the tool.
I used to pride myself on my Google search skills, right? Because that's a skill. I mean, it's a skill,
it
like you
is.
said. But for the sake of the audience, we've used this term several times. Prompt engineering. Well, I don't know if we've used technically that term, but we've talked about prompting. Who wants to tell us about prompt engineering? What is that?
I think Angelo should talk about this because you're going to come up with something, and I know you're going to tell everybody about your wonderful course that you're coming up with. So please
Oh,
go ahead.
right.
I was going to use it to plug something from Nimdzi too. So we can both plug. You go first.
Right.
You go first.
All right. So basically, I was reading a newsletter article, AI newsletter article by Stefan Huey, I think, and in it he talks about this idea of a global AI. And I read that and I was like, oh my God, that's actually what we're building. So I message him, and he gets really curious about it. And we come up, we realize later, like what we're building, we now know technically how we're going to define it. It is a no-code prompt engineering platform for language professionals. So it is a place you go to prompt your way through your job, basically. And when we started telling people about this and we started sharing it, like I remember we launched it, and like people like Nora Diaz, Martin Chamorro, these are interpreters. They're like, this is amazing. Like, this saves me so much time in research. I can pull together like bilingual glossaries and you go to these websites.
That.
Oh, right. And I realized, like, okay, so everybody here has got their own use case for prompting, but nobody knows how exactly to do it. And so I thought, okay, we're going to put together a prompt engineering course. What is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is it's like doing a Google search, but you're prompting, right? So if Google is ChatGPT and a Google search is searching on Google, then prompt engineering is prompting ChatGPT. The thing is, because ChatGPT is such a sophisticated technology, every token matters. Like every subword, every word you choose gets you to a different output. Now you can configure that slightly by minimizing the variability in ChatGPT and stuff. But just like Googling was a skill. Remember when there were Google hacks and you had to know things like putting things in quotes, Boolean operators, and or same thing. But now you've got a way more sophisticated tool that can do things for you, right? Like we're going to have a competition in a few weeks called BYOB, Build Your Own Bot Competition. So basically, you go to our site, you build a bot, and like we'll show you how to do it. It takes like 10 seconds. But then the rest of the competition is fine tuning the bot to make it your own personalized assistant. It's deployed through our Google Chrome extension.
Yeah.
So you can just go and you can just use the bot and use it to the internet, do it for research, do it for whatever you want.
Is that this site here where we can
It will
register?
be there, yes.
Yes.
All right.
That'll be basically it. So what you learn though is that unlike Google, so like Google has a website, google.com, and that's where you do your Google searches. OpenAI doesn't really have a website. They have a playground that you can go to and you can sort of diddle around with it, and that's how everybody is doing their prompting. But there isn't a proper platform to do your prompting, to do the cool things that you can actually do with it.
Yep.
So like we just launched a month or so ago. We have simple things on there, like we have pre-saved prompts. You can make custom prompts, launch those prompts, upload a file, chat with a file, apply prompts to a file. The next thing we're doing is the chatbot, because that's an easy and powerful thing to do.
Right.
And through tools like this, a quote unquote professional prompt engineer can do way more than just like write an article. You can start programming in English or human language a project manager bot, a quality control bot, a translator assistant bot. You can do like any bot, any person that you can think of that sits in front of a computer, you can do that thing, right? So like for as many use cases as there are of people sitting in front of a computer doing something on a web browser, that's how many use cases there are for ChatGPT. And so just by providing a simple platform where people can use their creativity and make their own bot, put together prompts, sequence the prompts so that like the output of one prompt becomes the input of another prompt.
That's where it's going to be powerful.
This is where you get the really cool things, like getting actual, like, you know how they talk about prompt, ChatGPT hallucinates.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so technically everything it does is
that's a nice word. I say it's a dirty damn liar is what I say.
Right. Now on the back end, all it's doing is taking in numbers and spitting out numbers. So it technically has no idea what it's doing. But one of the cool things you can do is once you start sort of sequencing prompts, you can start doing really cool things like running it through Google searches, summarizing the Google searches, and then reporting back the results and referencing the website. So now it's no longer lying, it's just summarizing what it does, which is a very different thing. And also referencing where it got that from. So that's a simple way where just by applying sequences of prompts, you can get ChatGPT to go from bold-faced liar to a proper researcher.
Yeah, I've learned to treat ChatGPT like I used to teach this like cross-cultural communication course, and I would say in some cultures it's really hard for people, or it's disrespectful to say no, like you don't know something. So you never ask like, do you understand the instructions? Because the answer will always be yes. In the meantime, they did not, right? So the way that you do it is you say, can you please repeat back to me the instructions, right? And I treat ChatGPT like that. And I say, okay, now rewrite this, but I want links to all of the places where you found this information. Right. And so at least then I can go verify the links. But
providing the sources.
I brought up on screen here, I just registered for an account here at Gabby T. And for those of you in the chat or joining us live, I put a link. It's Gabby, GABY-T.ai. And is this where I register for the Build-A-Bot?
So that's going to be something different. So,
okay. But
so
what is this?
You require the account. This is the actual workspace for the area where you're going to be able to upload a document, manipulate it through the prompts, and provide any additional instructions. For example, any comments or anything else. Sorry about the background noise. So this is the main interface, I'd say, where we actually interact with Gabby.
Yeah, I'll have the competition. You're going to need this tool, obviously, to build the bot and all of that. The other half takes place on our Discord server. So if anyone in the audience wants access, just connect with us on LinkedIn, message us. We'll send you an invite link. But that's where the community is going to be. That's where the competition is going to take place. And then, of course, you'll be using GabbyT to build your own bot and personalize it and take it home with you.
Yeah. So it'll be deployed from GabbyT, which you saw, and you'll be able to use it wherever you go. It's going to be great.
Very cool. Very cool. If I don't sign up, then I'm going to highly encourage a bunch of people from Nimdzi to sign up. And,
Yeah,
and
they'll walk away
I,
with an assistant.
I can read their notes. Right. I want to talk about, so we're talking about this hallucination and, I call it damn dirty lying, whatever you want to call it, but this obsession, and this is, a word that we hear a lot in the language services industry, usually in the context of machine translation, but human parody, right? And I kind of want to talk about this because you touch on it in your article. Let me see if I can bring something up here. In the context of digital assistants. And you say, and I'll read it out loud for the benefit of our podcast listeners. Sure, DAs, digital assistants, can't do everything perfectly yet, but neither can people. Plus, like a fine wine, it's explicitly designed, almost guaranteed to improve over time. There are at least 2 new versions slated for this year. That's better than some people we may know. The rise of DAs, I don't, that's, your cynicism.
That's not ChatGPT.
Your cynicism leaks through the page. That's better than some people would. The rise of digital assistants will have a harsh hangover effect. God, I love the analogies. The rise of digital assistants will have a harsh hangover effect on the business world. Digital assistants will have become a valuable tool for businesses looking to actually improve customer experience and even streamline internal operations. Now, I bring this paragraph up on screen here because it kind of marks a shift in your tone throughout the article, where you start off by calling it a cheap wine and calling it a necessary evil and talking about how much people hate it and they hate dealing with chatbots and they just want to get to a human. And here you're making the claim that digital assistants will have become a valuable tool for businesses actually looking to improve customer experience and streamline their internal operations.
The amazing thing about ChatGPT is that you can steer it. You can edit or modify, or whatever term you want to use, its persona. And you can give it your training manual, your sales training manual, your customer service manual.
How guys, anything. Yeah.
It will read it, and then it will behave like it.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that it was trained on all the garbage of the internet, you can post your or attach your training material to it, and it will start following it. That is a really big deal, because now you can, without doing much work, because presumably you already have the documentation for your own team, you can start having the chatbot behave like a fellow member of the team. And of course, it costs you not a salary.
Well, it costs. That's one of the downsides I found. I've had really interesting conversations. For those listening, go check out our past stuff. We did a really cool presentation with Laszlo and Yurik from the Nimdzi team. They gave a great summary on ChatGPT. Had a really fascinating conversation with Kirti Vashi. So I feel like I've had this conversation several times, but it's an interesting conversation. And let's be honest, like, you wait a week and it's going to be a different conversation anyways, right? But one of the things that I don't know if I like it or if I'm scared of it is this ability to learn over time. And it's a great thing because you can teach it, but it falls into that category of we're not really sure how it's learning, right? And, visions of the apocalypse, fill in the blank, come to mind. But for the language services industry, I think this is really, really interesting. The reason I got on this rant was talking about the cost. You said it doesn't cost the same as a human. And I think this is one of the areas where we're still seeing a lot of immaturity, because the pricing structure, the cost structure is far from transparent, in my opinion, on this. You're buying tokens, but what does a token equal? It equals a character, but characters and tokens aren't created equal across different languages. So how, like, you're using this, you're presumably paying something for it. Like, what have you guys seen in terms of the cost and pricing structure?
Just FYI, the price actually just went down recently.
Oh, did it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we have a significant amount of users using GabBT at the moment, and I'd say that our monthly throughput on cost is not that immense. So it's very reasonable. So I mean, I think that if we were using a straight MT engine, for example, it would be more expensive.
Right.
Okay.
It's so, you know, it's actually really similar to you know, kind of put together a quote for translations. The rate is different per language. The rate is different per match, you know, fuzzy match, perfect match, even 101, right? And so like it's technically as sophisticated. Like you need a cat tool to figure it out, right? And in the same way, there's a tokenization library that we can use to know what exactly a token is, and we map that to the rate that OpenAI is charging us, and we can see roughly you know, the cost per user, per prompt, per whatever. And so the pricing is mysterious in that it's not, you can't just do it in your head.
Okay.
But technically
you
it's
can
just like it's
with the spreadsheet, you can figure it out.
yeah, you'd have to know what your what you have to know what the tokens are, but that's why you need a cat tool, right? Just like you need a cat tool, you're going to need another tool.
Okay.
Net
Okay.
rates
And in
you have
fact,
to calculate in your head. So
in fact, we were talking about having a token counter as part of our tool. The problem is nobody knows what a token is yet. So we can have it there, but it's only useful for me and Bryan because we're the ones tracking the cost. But yeah, in the same sense, it's like a cat tool. You need the cat tool to know what percentage of your content is matching and a fuzzy match and all that. So
Got it. Makes sense. And that's a really good analogy because, like, how many people out there understand weighted word counts?
Yep.
You know
exactly.
what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
I mean, I do, but I'm weird, right? So we just need weirdos in our lives, like you guys, that actually can tell us what a token is.
There we go.
We'll have to do something clever, like maybe we'll have like a word token converter, like a real-time one or something, because that's algorithmic. You can do that on the fly.
Yeah. But you've also got this covered in your course too, right? So you talk about tokenization.
Yeah, we even talk about token optimization.
You
Yeah.
keep talking about this course. Is there a landing page for that I can plug?
So what I'm doing right now is I'm putting it together in pieces, and each month or each week I come up with a new module.
Okay.
So I've done two, I think. The first one is just the basic concepts of it, like it's what is the training data, what's a context window, what's tokenization, so that people understand like what's going on the back end. But I don't get into anything technical.
Okay.
Because there's no point. And then this next part is like, you know, the prompt area, like what's a system role, query, things like that. But then it gets really interesting. The important thing to know is that like conceptually prompting is straightforward, but the reality is that like because there is no google.com to properly prompt, you need a tool. You will need a tool to do proper prompting. Like it's rare that if you want something out of ChatGPT that you get it in one prompt. Right, you always have to refine it, right? So okay, so how do you do this?
That leads to anxiety for me because like I've signed up for ChatGPT, but like if you want to use GPT-4, like you only get like 20 prompts in an hour, so that leads to anxiety because I know it's going to take me multiple prompts to get the answer that I want, and I haven't ever run out yet. It's a false anxiety.
But I mean, ultimately, like that's the big benefit of our no code prompt engineering platform. You can save your prompts, reuse them. You can fine tune the model so that it's maintaining consistency. And then there's techniques that we teach in our course on how to get it to not hallucinate or how to minimize it and be able to detect it without having to do anything. So for example, taking an average across multiple outputs is one way. Well, not taking an average, but taking the commonality across multiple outputs is one way of getting a sense of which part of the output is actually fake and which is not. Another way is by implementing an internet search and forcing it to reference where it's getting its information, because it doesn't hallucinate. Well, I shouldn't say
you have to hold it accountable, basically.
Right. I mean, I shouldn't say doesn't, but like when you're telling it to summarize something, the likelihood of it of a hallucination, as far as I can tell, is like 0.
Right.
But if you're just straight out asking it a question and you're getting an answer, like who knows what if it's saying is real or not, right? But if you're telling it to summarize something that you just gave it,
Yep.
it's doing is parsing it down into a fewer word count. So there are techniques for cutting out the hallucination. There are techniques for, my gosh, one of the cooler things is turning its output into a PowerPoint slide. Or
I've heard of people doing that.
Yeah.
right.
The
So
VBA
like
I haven't done it yet.
basically. Yep.
right. So the course is going to teach all that stuff, and that's part of the power. Like once you learn this stuff, you can't unlearn it, and all of a sudden you can't live without it, right? Once you start Googling, what are you going to do?
Resistance
I mean, it's
is
not. And
futile.
don't forget, it's not just PowerPoint. I mean, you can do it across all the Office suites,
Right.
So there's all macros things you can do like that. It's really cool.
Right.
But we'll just geekify that. So it's
We have a question here from Martin in chat. Lots of. I'm watching the chat over there, guys. Good chatter going on. Asked regarding tokens, based upon a token to word ratio, is there an estimation of how long can an input be to be effective? Does it change depending upon the input language? Oh, so it's like they're like diminishing because you need to have a detailed input, right? That's clear and concise, and you have to have a good prompt. But you're based upon the length of that, you're getting charged tokens, right? So is there a cutoff? Is there a equilibrium point? I guess is the answer.
So there is a limit in terms of what you can submit at the moment with the models. So I mean, effectively, I think we've seen easily like 600 words goes through, maybe 1,000. Once you get up above 1,000, it kind of depends if it's going to choke or not. Normally I would say that what we're putting through in terms of prompts is allowed, I think, 2048 tokens. It's equivalent to like 1,000 some odd words. So.
Yeah, 75% is roughly the conversion rate. So
that's a little bit more clear. Thank you.
Well, yeah. Someone said 1,000 tokens is almost 750 words per OpenAI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I will nod my head and pretend I know what they're talking about. Yes. Good point, Islam. Good point.
The important part is how much really like what matters is the context. So like not literally the question or instruction, but the context that you want, the additional information that you want to provide it in order for it to give you the output it wants. So for example, from a translation point of view, you would want translation memory to be part of the context. That way, when it does the translation and when you provide the source content, having the source content be translated with the translation memory in mind is what matters. But translation memory takes up tokens. Its output takes up tokens, and that whole context window of 2048 is the current limit. That limit goes to 16,000 starting like Friday or something. But
on the 27th, and
next week.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can also compress text to different types of let's say computer language so that it understands, and you can actually put more information in, so you can get more for your
You can even use emojis as a way of compressing content to minimize tokens, but while maintaining the meaning.
It's amazing.
It's like a zip file.
I don't even understand emojis half the time.
That's the crazy
thing.
What
do they mean by this? Winky face? Are they flirting with me? Like, all right. I saw one more in chat here. Martin says, thank you. You're welcome, Martin. Islam says, another power, cross-prompting GPT to generate prompts for Midjourney is amazing. And I wanted to read that because I want you guys to explain to me what the heck he's talking about.
Well, we actually used to do this with our social media posts on LinkedIn. So like Midjourney is another LLM where you say something like, create a dashboard that's futuristic in the colors of red, white, and blue, and hit enter, and it'll create like a dashboard. And depending on whether you said data dashboard or car dashboard or no dashboard, it'll create that thing.
Okay.
So what you can do is you can tell ChatGPT to write you a prompt for Midjourney. And so you can say like to ChatGPT, I'm doing a blog post and I need a banner picture that's related to this text. Can you create a prompt for Midjourney that relates to what I'm writing. And then the output would be, if I'm writing a blog post about cats, it'll be like, do cats with, and then it'll take keywords from the Yard blog article about being furry and whatever. And you'll start writing the article. And then if it's, photorealistic or not, it'll do that too. And then you just copy paste that into Midjourney, and then Midjourney will produce its output. So that's how you use it, and you can do much more too. Like
I
there's
just didn't know what
LLMs
Midjourney was, and I do know though. I
it's
listened
just a
to
text to image.
Okay, I watched this podcast with Marjolein from Multilingual, and she was on I forget the name of the podcast, but Scott Abel's podcast, The Content Wrangler.
Yeah, Content Wrangler.
Yeah, I forget the name of his podcast. I'd like to plug it, but maybe someone in chat can drop that. And they were talking about using AI for image generation. And multilingual, like if you open up, this is the image associated with your article here.
Yep.
Like we've been fully taking advantage of this over at Multilingual. And I remember Marioline's point was the same as like what I was saying about the content, creating content, is it's not saving time necessarily, right? Because there's still work that goes into like the prompting and getting getting the good images and all that stuff. But I mean, it's really cool. It's really cool. And previously, the only way to get these cool images would be to commission artists to do it and spend a ton of money. And sorry to the struggling artists out there who, but I would say those artists that are afraid of like losing their jobs, I would say not necessarily, because much like with machine translation, my argument is always machine translation isn't replacing translators. It's translating the stuff that normally there wouldn't be budget for, right? And it's not like without ChatGPT, Multilingual would be out commissioning this type of stuff. Trust me, it's not in the budget. But now that there is an option for it, it's just really cool.
It is so cool. And I think that's a good segue into Angelo's acronym, or the new acronym that he keeps wanting to push.
Okay.
Oh, MTPE is the new MTPE, that one.
Yes,
MTPE,
indeed.
or ChatGPT is the new MTPE?
No, MTPE, machine translation, prompt engineering is the new machine translation, post-editing.
Elaborate, please, because I don't disagree.
Well, I mean, before there were cat tools, there was just typing, and then came the cat tool, and it was the same. Nobody wanted to use it. It's going to steal the translator's job. And then NMT came out, and nobody wanted to use that. It's going to steal the translator's job. And now, ChatGPT and whatever come out, LLMs come out, and people are thinking. In fact, if you read the post, I didn't go to Lockworld, but if you read the post about Lockworld, people are just like, success, end game. We have human level machine translation, and it's really just another phase. It's really just another phase. It's whoever is using these tools are the ones that are going to be able to output more and whatnot. What I would say though is there's an adjacent conversation. Everyone keeps lowering their rates and then complaining that they're agreeing to the lower rates. And I don't mean that came off bad. What I want to say is only agree to the rates of what you're worth and don't charge a penny less. Use this technology to output more and faster and better and make more money. Don't use the technology to output faster, but then have to work more in order to get right. And that doesn't help. That doesn't help anybody, right? So anyway.
Really quickly, thank you, Erica. The podcast I was referring to is Coffee and Content with the Content Wrangler, Scott Abel. So go check that out. It's a great podcast. All right.
They were the ones that turned me on to Didifiles years ago.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, they've been around for a while. I think we're coming up on time here, but I wanted to bring us home here. One of your closing arguments here. I'll just read it. Talking about the changing role of humans, which is just what we were talking about. There are many times that technology has shook the foundations of a particular industry, for better and sometimes for worse. But one thing is certain, it has always provided new opportunities for advancement, revenue, and learning for those who embraced it as early adopters. Maybe we need to adapt, As automation technology marches forward, we will be relegated to hiding behind the chatbot, hoping not to be on the receiving end of an irate customer wanting us, the next available agent. Referring, of course, back to what we were talking about at the beginning, which is, the person who's irritated with the phone pressing 0,
Right.
just trying to talk to somebody.
Right.
Talk to me about this. And you also said like the tone about the new technology coming out of the general, the usual suspects, the industry, gossip tanks, and the localization worlds, versus your take on it. Because I've heard a lot of different takes. What's your take on it? Doom and gloom, or sunshine, roses, and unicorns?
Yeah, admittedly, I wasn't at the conference. So I was Constantine.
Yeah,
Branch.
Kostya always does those great summaries.
Fantastic conference coverage, right? Which would normally cost a lot of money in other industries. The guy just posts all the goods.
Kostya is losing money for localization world. They should send someone after him.
You have a good point, but it's super. Thank you, Constantine. So he's reporting on how like LSPs are patting their back, saying that they can do no human in the loop, human level machine translation. It's end game. Like we don't need translators anymore. Celebration, and I read that and I was like, that doesn't sound right. And of course, we wrote an article saying the opposite. And I immediately saw a post by Anna Marjanovic, who owns an LSP, and she said the obvious thing, which is like, excuse me, but if there are no translators in the loop, then there are no translation companies. And that got me thinking, okay, so what are the value adds that an LSP brings to mind? And Tucker, you and Renato wrote the book on this, right? In your book, The Theory of the Translation Company, you say that there's like 3 core functions that an LSP brings to the table, right? One is
project management, vendor management.
Project management, vendor management, and sales, right? Let's ignore sales for a second because everything requires
most of us
sales.
do in this industry.
Right. So vendor management, obviously, if you don't have vendors, if you don't have linguists, that role reduces significantly, if not completely. Project managers do a lot. And in fact, I've been collaborating a lot with localization manager Boriana. I'm gonna ruin her last name. Boriana Nanova. And she brings up a lot of really good use cases for our platform that are completely unrelated to managing vendors. But a big chunk of what project management is just making sure that things deliver on time, having to deal with whatever questions and issues the translators have, having to deal with that, whatever that is, right? And there's a bunch of stuff left. But if you're not dealing with vendors, the role of project management, I think, dwindles down a lot to file processing of some kind and general level project level
management,
QA.
Essentially,
Right.
It's exception management
because most of it can be automated.
Yeah.
So what's an LSP doing? If you don't have the vendor management, you don't have the project management, you're just selling. You're reselling, in this case, ChatGPT.
You're the middleman.
Well, that's the sales core function, which, I mean, the sales core function gets into account management and relationship management and trust building. And yeah, it's one of my things that I say, and I think I probably say it in the book, is at the end of the day, the client wants a throat to choke. And you can't choke.
Yes.
They want a shoulder to cry on and a throat to choke, right? Depending upon the situation. And you can't choke a machine. Right? Nor can you cry on its shoulders. So when the machine screws up, whose throat are they going to choke?
Exactly. So like the thing that we say is that ultimately what clients want is a translation. They don't necessarily want the translator, but if something goes wrong, you need someone to talk to, right? And unless the LSP is willing to put themselves on the line for ChatGPT's output or whatever, actually what's happening is it's the translator that's going to still maintain the value because they're the ones who are happy to say, yep, this is right or something, right? And as long as business risk is on the line, as long as sales is on the line,
contracts, healthcare, all these translations, they're not going to allow it to go through just an automated process.
Right. So unavoidably, the translator is in the loop. Or there's a translator that I liked how she said it. Her name is Deborah.
You're just all about the name dropping today.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, Borian
Deborah
is in the
Perry
comments.
DoCarmo.
Deborah Carey.
Perry DoCarmo. She's got a cool hashtag, machine in the loop.
Machine in the. I like that.
inferring the opposite, right? You're
Yeah,
not getting rid of
I
the
like that.
human.
Yeah.
You're not getting rid of the human. The human chooses
Mhm.
their tools and what to do.
Yep.
And at the end of the story, that's what we agree with. Like, you can't get rid of the translator. If you're doing translations, you can't get rid of the translator. If the buyer wants machine translation, they'll just go to Google Translate, or they'll just go to OpenAI, ChatGPT, whatever.
Yeah.
And they'll get it. And if they want it with data secure, then they'll just pay for the API, because that's the deal. You pay for ChatGPT, you get data
Mhm.
security. They don't use the data to train your model.
Right.
And so, like, as an LSP, what are you selling? So we're of the belief that you can't get rid of the translator for as long as people want translations.
Yep.
Because, like
you
you
can
say,
automate the process to a certain degree, but you're gonna need them somewhere
Here,
in
here.
that loop.
yeah, the buyer needs someone to talk to for whatever reason, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Client feedback says not so sure, and then the translator says, well, actually, this is how
And-
they normally say this.
And how many people actually understand the languages they're being delivered? I mean, they
Right.
can't
Most
validate
buyers,
anything.
right. The buyer can't. It's very bad that the buyer can't tell the difference between machine translation and professional translation. But
They
when
know that's just the ongoing joke is if it's bad, then it's machine translation.
yeah, okay, if they
Mhm.
can read it, if they can
Every
read
time
it,
it's
yes.
every time there's a bad translation, it sounds like it's machine translated.
Somebody's
It's like,
uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters.
yeah,
said
yeah,
something
Yeah.
about it.
the janitor reviewing
Yeah.
your deliverable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's
So
that's
ultimately, you need the translator.
yeah.
So it's
Mhm.
I don't think it doesn't look good if an LSP is saying we're happy to keep the human out of the loop. I think that makes sense only if that's what the buyer wants.
There's
and
going to
that's
be a
the
market,
problem.
but
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certainly a market for machine translations.
Well, and
Um,
we're like I said, it's an ongoing discussion in our industry right now. Even right now, someone in LinkedIn saying there was a conversation with Nick McMahon over at United Language Group, and he seems to go in the direction of translator out of the loop, right? So you're going to be hearing, there's heroes and villains on both sides, right?
Right. I mean,
well said.
right. The client technically isn't asking for a translator. They're asking for a translation.
Right.
Right. And the quality that translation has to be delivered at is dependent on the client's
asking
needs,
for
right?
a solution to their problem. When
Yep.
their problem is
Exactly.
how do I communicate with my international customers? So I mean, we can take they're asking for a translation. Let's take that one step further. No, they're not asking for a translation. They're asking for the ability to communicate with their international customers, right?
Right. And that could be a
Yep.
bilingual chatbot. That could
It
be a
could be.
bilingual chatbot. It could be a machine translation, or, if they want to make sure they're getting their money's worth, just hire a person, because the return on investment for a translation is like 4,000% or whatever.
Right. Right. Well, guys, I'm watching the clock here. We're running out of time. Boriana says hi. She's stalking you in the
Oh,
chat.
listening. Hi,
So
Brianna.
she was listening. Any closing thoughts before I start wrapping it up here today, gentlemen?
Wow.
I just
Or
want to plug.
where can we
your
find you?
competition.
Plug everything.
All right.
Go,
Do
go,
all
go,
of that
go.
stuff.
So our platform is a no-code prompt engineering platform for language professionals, Gabby-T.ai. Go there. If you want to join our Discord server, connect with me or Bryan. We will send you an invite. We have coming up in a few weeks, build your own bot competition. No technical expertise required. We will teach you how to build a bot in 5 minutes or less. And after that, the competition is just to fine-tune the bot through prompting. So you will walk away with your very own personalized digital assistant that you can just keep and use, and traverse the internet and do whatever you want, help you with translations, help you with project management, help you with interpreting research, whatever you want. And we're going to have fun. We're going to do that a bunch of times. And stay tuned for more. There's a lot of exciting stuff.
That's completely awesome. Yeah, and
Any
I would
rebuttals,
just.
Brian?
I mean, I agree. I just think that people should really leverage, the technology that's coming out, because I think right now we're in an advent of something going way up in terms of a dramatic rise in terms of usage. So I mean, I would get on that wave and ride it, because it's not going to go away.
Translators are the ideal prompt engineers.
Yep.
If English is code, then multilingual people are objectively superior prompters.
I like that. Translators are the ideal prompt engineers. I think that's a good tag to end on. I'll take us out. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome back anytime.
Thank you for the invite.
Course. And yeah, I'll take us out. Ladies, gentlemen, chat, we are out of time for today. If you enjoyed this Nimdzi Live experience, make sure that you are following us on LinkedIn so you will be notified when we host new events.
No.
Yes. I'm going to mute you guys there. No, I won't meet you guys. I appreciate our guests, Angelo and Bryan, today. I appreciate all my colleagues here at Nimdzi Insights doing all the hard work so I can have these fun conversations. I appreciate everybody in our industry who fills out Nimdzi surveys and schedules briefings with our analysts to share their expertise with the industry. And finally, I appreciate you, the audience, who are joining us live today. All of the dialogue and chat, everyone with questions, comments, and criticisms. And with that, cheers. Have a great day.